So I did this presentation for someone that refuses to watch Avatar The Last Airbender, and it goes over the plot of Avatar The Last Airbender in a very quick and general way, and now I have decided to upload it here for anyone who wants to watch the live action but still kind of know what the heck is going on. So here we go. So in this world, we have benders, which are able to control the four elements, and then we have non-benders, and then the nations or states are divided by these elements. Essentially what happened is that 100 years ago, the Fire Nation decided to become like an empire and wanted to expand because they were like more industrial than the rest of the nations, and this has started like a war that has lasted for 100 years. And in this world, there's this thing called the Avatar, and that is a bender that can bend all four elements. And this person is in charge of like all the spiritual stuff and like keeping the peace in the world. But this person disappeared 100 years ago after their ancestor kind of like died. And he was supposed to be born in the Air Nation, but then the Fire Nation kind of destroyed the Air like temples to make sure the Avatar wasn't born and they couldn't be stopped. So our main characters for season 1 are Suko, Aang, Katara, Sokka, Iroh, and then we have little Appa over here. The plot starts when Katara and Sokka are fishing on the South Pole, and then they come and they find Aang inside this iceberg with Appa in it. Suko is actually the prince of the Fire Nation that has been dishonored for speaking up during a council meeting, and the only way he can return or that his father would let him back in is if he captures the Avatar. So he's obsessed with finding the Avatar. So during season 1 or book 1, we find out that Aang is the Avatar. He ran away because he didn't want to carry the responsibility of being the Avatar. He was only 11 when he found out. And then Sokka and Katara are kind of like his buddies. So after several adventures, Katara, Sokka, and Aang end up in the North Pole. So Aang, Katara, and Sokka and Appa make it all the way to the North Pole, and in the North Pole, Aang and Katara learn how to waterbend. While they were learning waterbending, Sokka over here got a girlfriend, which is Jue, the princess of the North Pole. Problem here is that a general from the Fire Nation, Suko and Iroh, have followed them all the way to the North Pole, and General Zhao, a very bad person, is trying to take over the North Pole. The way he takes the North Pole is by killing the Moon Spirit, but then Sokka's girlfriend, Jue, has to sacrifice herself to save the Moon Spirit because she had a connection with the Moon Spirit. And I'm running out of time, so I'm gonna make a part 2. Once the Fire Nation is defeated, we get the sense that the North Pole people are gonna go to the South Pole to help their sister tribe, and then we go on to book 2. Hello and welcome to part 2. Here we go. So at the end of book 1 and at the beginning of book 2, we get introduced to this character, Azula. She is the princess of the Fire Nation. She is ruthless, and she's sent over to capture the Avatar because Suko failed at it. Then another new character is Toph Beifong. Toph is blind, but she's still amazing at earthbending, and because she is blind, she is able to earthbend in a very unique way. However, Toph has no idea how to properly bend sand, so during one of the episodes, little Appa over here gets kidnapped because she wasn't able to save him. Anyway, back to the main plot. Azula over here has a girl boss girl group. Her main mission was to capture the Avatar, but she gets kind of sidetracked and ends up conquering an entire city called Ba Sing Se, which was one of the major cities of the Earth Kingdom. The main reason the Avatar team was there was because they were trying to get some support from the Earth King to invade the Fire Nation during an eclipse that would make all firebenders powerless. But Azula, taking over Ba Sing Se through a coup, made all of their plans a hot mess. So then we get this scene where Suko essentially switches teams briefly and talks to Katara, who offers to take the scar off of his face. But then Azula shows up, makes Suko regret his decision of switching to Team Avatar, and then injures Aang so bad everyone thought he was dead. Now on book number 3, Aang recovers from his injuries, and then the solar eclipse is almost here, the invasion starts. However, little Azula ended up finding out about the whole solar eclipse invasion plan, thanks to the fact that she disguised herself during her coup. So then sadly, Team Avatar has to take a retreat, but then on a serious turn of events, Suko over here decides to switch teams one more time and go teach Aang firebending. During the time Suko was teaching Aang firebending, we learned that the comet Ozai is also coming around again. For some context, this comet gives firebenders an amazing, powerful flame. And the last time it was used to wipe off the face of the earth any airbenders. We learned that Fire Lord Zozin is planning on using this comet to essentially bring to ashes Ba Sing Se, the biggest major city on the Earth Kingdom, as a way to restart and reset the whole world and make his empire even greater. And I'm gonna have to make a part 3 for the last episode because it's the final battle and the most important one and the whole thing gets wrapped up. So come back for part 3. So on the last episode, Aang kind of just like disappears. He goes on this spiritual journey right before the battle and no one knows where the heck he went. So Sokka, Suki, and Toph go over there and they start battling the battleships, while Katara, right here, and Suko team up to defeat Azula. Now mind you, Azula is a super strong character. She's almost undefeatable, but she's been going through some mental crisis and she's a little bit deranged by the time this episode shows up. Suko notices that she's not doing very well, so he decides to fight Azula on his own. However, that's a horrible idea because Azula then realizes that Suko cares about Katara. So she ends up shooting lightning at Katara, and then Suko, trying to save Katara from the lightning, gets in the path of it, which ends up injuring him horrible. But then Katara and Azula end up fighting, and at the end, Katara wins. This was my favorite episode. This was my favorite part of the entire show because the battle was so epic and heartbreaking because it was brother versus sister. Now here, Aang finally shows up to the battle, and it's an epic battle. There's fire everywhere, the comet's going off and stuff like that. Now, Aang is not capable of killing the Fire Lord, so what he ends up doing is that he ends up taking his firebending skills, essentially making him powerless. The problem here is that Fire Lord Ozai only's personality trait was being a firebender, and a very powerful one, so this is a gigantic win. Now, the way the series ends is just so cute because Suko and Mei end up being together, Katara and Aang end up being together, Ty Lee joins the Kyoshi warriors with Suki. Suko becomes the Fire Lord with the blessing of Aang. And right when that ends, we get this plot twist where Suko ends up going to his father's cell, asking him, "What the heck happened with my mom? Where is she?" And you're about to tell me the whole story. And at the end, we get the most adorable scene where all of them are just hanging out, drinking tea at Uncle Iroh's tea shop. So yeah, that is the end of the general plot, and I will soon be doing a more detailed part on each and every character and side characters that we have here, as well as some of the comics that were released after Avatar The Last Airbender TV show wrapped, because I just think that this universe is so rich in history that I cannot wait to show you guys. I have several of the comics, so I'm gonna be going over what the stories are in those comics and what else did they bring right before The Legend of Korra, which is the second TV show based off of this universe.